Rome and the Pope. Distinguished listeners, today, May 1, 2026, I, Sun Lin, would like to use AI to recount a dream I had concerning the Holy See of Rome, also known as the Vatican, and a Pope whose identity remains unknown to me. This dream serves as a sign that the supreme leader of the Catholic faith has committed an error. The Holy Spirit is issuing a warning to the one who has strayed from the true path. Shortly before Pope Benedict XVI's resignation in 2013, I experienced the following vision in a dream. I was standing in an open, empty field. It was late evening. High in the sky, a white dove appeared in flight. The dove bore a striking resemblance to the symbolic imagery of the Holy Spirit often depicted within Catholic churches. The bird flew slowly and directly toward me, much like an airplane descending onto a runway. Suddenly, the dove transformed into a signpost bearing the word Rome in massive letters. As the signpost drew closer, it shifted form once again, becoming a large stone still inscribed with the word Rome. Just as I recoiled in terror, fearing the stone would crash down upon me, I caught sight of a figure clad in a monastic-style robe standing approximately 100 feet in front of me. The stone struck this robed figure, causing him to collapse to the ground. At that moment, I awoke. Interpretation: this dream occurred while I was in the midst of preparing to write an article titled, "Rome is Sinking into the Sea." In my view, the Vatican or Rome represents the Holy See, the central headquarters and spiritual heart of the Catholic world. Rome is currently grappling with numerous grave issues spanning liturgical rites, organizational structures, doctrinal tenets, and its stance and perspective regarding political entities, violence, and other religious faiths that are in urgent need of reform. I would note that, in my assessment, the aforementioned dream does not allude to Pope Benedict's decision to resign. This means that many unresolved issues still remain and will continue after the new Pope ascends the throne. We would like to present several key points regarding the article titled, "The Roman Rock Upon the Pope," as follows. 1. Regarding the stance and perspective of the Holy See, Vatican. In recent times, particularly during President Trump's term, beginning in 2016, Pope Francis has frequently criticized Mr. Trump's administration, relying more on reports from the mass media and television than on accurate accounts provided by dioceses and parishes. This reflects a recurring misjudgment on the part of the Holy See regarding various issues throughout history, such as the Vietnam War. The Holy See's perspective sometimes fails to focus sufficiently on the savage and cruel tactics employed by various dictatorial, terrorist, and communist regimes in their efforts to eradicate the Catholic faith. These regimes perceive the Catholic Church and the moral authority of the Pope as the primary obstacle hindering their progress. On one hand, they actively undermine the Catholic Church across the globe, yet, on the other, they feign deep reverence for the Holy See. Communist regimes function as iron walls, devoid of press freedom, where no one is permitted to photograph, film, or document the regime's brutal atrocities. Consequently, officials within the Holy See tend to view current events through a political lens rather than a religious one. We have learned that in certain Middle Eastern Islamic nations just a few years ago, terrorist groups abducted hundreds of female students from a Catholic school, forcing them into sexual slavery and using them as human shields. These groups also raped numerous nuns and forced both male and female religious figures to walk naked through the streets. Subsequently, they tortured and executed them. Was the Vatican aware of these incidents? We have not heard the Holy See issue a public protest or a stern condemnation regarding these events. Why is that? A brief letter respectfully addressed to His Holiness Pope Pius XIV. I write this letter as if making my confession to Your Holiness within the sacred confines of the confessional. That is to say, I pledge to speak the absolute truth regarding all that I know, just as I once vowed to His Holiness Mother Mary. For 14 years I was held captive in prisons known as re-education camps under the Vietnamese communist regime. In 1952, I was sponsored by a priest and studied at the Tri Chin Minor Seminary in Phat Diem. In 1975, Saigon in South Vietnam was forced to lay down its arms and surrender to the North Vietnamese communists, largely due to pressure from the Democratic Party. I was subsequently arrested and imprisoned by the Vietnamese communists. Many anti-communist priests and Catholic people were arrested and summarily executed. I scarcely dare to speak of the truly horrific acts of inhumanity that characterized the treatment of one human being by another within those walls. For if I were to speak of them, many would simply disbelieve me, assuming that I had a deep hatred for the communists and am merely slandering them. Yet, I do not hate the communists. Rather, I view the communist officials and the ordinary citizens alike as deeply pitiable figures. They are compelled to betray their own consciences and act strictly in accordance with government directives. Were they to refuse, they would face imprisonment and certain death. The communist regime has existed continuously from 1945 to the present day. Their fundamental objective is the destruction of the free world. They enforce a monolithic leadership structure, allowing for absolutely no freedom of speech, no freedom of the press, and no freedom of the media. They rule over the populace as if they were merely livestock, confined within a pen. No one is permitted to use a camera or video recorder to document their crimes, or to capture current events and political developments that could serve as evidence against them. In Vietnam prior to 1975, the Americans, exerting pressure upon their allies, compelled the Saigon government to treat communist prisoners of war with humanity and decency. Those communist prisoners were provided with nutritious food and were spared from arduous labor. Indeed, they even went so far as to voice complaints if they felt the prison authorities had served them spoiled fish. Yet, when millions of soldiers and civilians from South Vietnam were subsequently captured and incarcerated by the communists, they were confined in the remote, mountainous regions of extreme northern Vietnam, perilously close to the Chinese border. However, when millions of soldiers and civilians from South Vietnam were imprisoned by the communists in the remote mountainous regions of northern Vietnam near the Chinese border, the captives were forced to toil relentlessly, much like condemned prisoners awaiting execution. Each day, the prisoners were allotted only a few cassava roots and sweet potatoes, accompanied by a meager ration of weak salt water and boiled greens. Once a year, on the Communist Party's National Day, the prison authorities would grant each inmate a single bowl of rice and a few morsels of pork. We strained our eyes in anticipation, yet we saw no Americans, not a single delegation from the United Nations, nor did any representatives from the Holy See come to visit. The fate of the prisoners was akin to that of a fish lying helpless upon a chopping block. As an officer of the South Vietnamese military who had served alongside many American officers prior to 1975, I have observed that His Holiness views current events through the lens of a camera and through the medium of television broadcasts. Consequently, His Holiness cannot truly grasp the reality of communism, nor can he fully comprehend the agendas of the world's major geopolitical powers. His Holiness is a man overflowing with mercy, deeply devoted to the poor and the suffering. He stands as their unwavering protector. Yet, his compassion is like a cup already filled to the brim, incapable of holding even a single additional drop of sweetened water or colored syrup. This boundless love, taken to an extreme, inadvertently leads him in his fervent embrace of one side to manifest hostility toward the other. Because of his profound reverence for God and his abhorrence of sin, he has come to harbor animosity toward those he perceives as transgressors. Such is the perspective His Holiness holds regarding the United States and, most particularly, regarding President Trump personally. I respectfully ask Your Excellency to view matters with an objective eye when passing judgment, and to treat everyone with fairness. The Catholic Church today faces many significant challenges that must be addressed in order to strengthen the faith of the laity and foster the growth of the Church. I believe that Your Holiness's assessment of current political affairs mirrors that of Pope Francis before you. You appear overly preoccupied with the United States, while seemingly no one has brought to your attention the truly savage and brutal actions committed by dictatorial regimes and terrorist entities. Most recently, Russia, employing powerful weaponry comparable to that of the United States, has been bombing Ukraine day and night. Russia is not targeting military bases or barracks. Instead, it is launching missiles into residential areas, hospitals, and schools. Russia has killed a great number of elderly people, hospital patients, women, and children. In Africa, terrorist groups are kidnapping schoolgirls to rape them and train them as combatants. Why is this happening? Turning to the issue of immigration in the United States, immigrants are indeed destitute and pitiable people. However, by opening the borders and allowing immigrants from all over the world to flood into the U.S., President Biden is effectively importing and enabling human trafficking rings, including those dealing in sex workers as well as criminals and terrorists. I must ask, can the United States truly afford to support the entire world, particularly when its own citizens face unemployment and when so many homeless people are left wandering the streets? There is a political conspiracy at play here. The Democratic Party is not motivated by genuine compassion for these destitute immigrants. Rather, the Democratic Party is exploiting them as a voting bloc to bolster its own political power. The views held by both Pope Francis and Your Holiness regarding these matters do not command the support of many Catholics. Indeed, many have voiced their strong opposition, having themselves been victims of communism. They have endured far too much suffering and humiliation at the hands of communist regimes. President Trump is a billionaire with no prior political experience. Yet, he was chosen by God to ensure that America upholds its duty to protect justice and maintain global order. 3 months before Mr. Trump was elected president in 2016, my son Lynn produced a video confirming that I had dreamt of seeing the name Maria displayed on the podium during a presidential inauguration ceremony. Flanking the name Maria on the canopy above the podium were images of 2 elephants, the symbol of the Republican Party. See photo. I subsequently uploaded this video to YouTube. I offered my congratulations to Mr. Trump and advised him to exercise humility and avoid arrogance, lest it jeopardize his career. From 2016 to the present day, I have remained steadfast in my belief that God and the Virgin Mary personally selected Mr. Trump to serve as president. In numerous videos, I have consistently predicted that Mr. Trump would not face imprisonment and that he would indeed serve as president. I also predicted that the Republican Party would secure a majority in both legislative chambers during the 2014 elections. See photo. Powerful forces wielding vast financial resources and the authority at their disposal have made every attempt to have him incarcerated and to deplete his family's assets, yet they have failed. President Trump has been the target of assassination attempts on 3 separate occasions. These events serve as proof that the Virgin Mary is constantly watching over and protecting him. At the time, security protocols were severely lax, riddled with vulnerabilities that would have allowed snipers to easily carry out an assassination plot against him. Yet, he survived. The most recent of these attempts occurred on Saturday, April 25, in Washington. Speaking as some Lynn and viewing the world through the lens of mystical science, I constantly perceive a dark, gloomy pall hovering over the United States. Catastrophes involving tornadoes, wildfires, storms, and floods ceaselessly strike numerous states. The toll on America is immense, exacting a heavy price in both financial resources and human lives. In part, this serves as divine punishment and a warning that the nation has strayed from the righteous path. These catastrophic natural disasters are, in fact, the retribution of the aggrieved souls of the millions of unborn children aborted each year, as well as the souls of those who were unjustly driven to their deaths while striving to uphold justice. In a book published in 2005, my son Lynn reprinted a collection of articles I had written for the Saigon Post weekly newspaper starting in 1997, a time when I served as the publication's general secretary. I observed that the United States had become little more than an open-air marketplace, a place where the security apparatus did not function to protect the nation against terrorism, but instead focused solely on eliminating political opponents. I noted that numerous gangs and terrorist organizations had proliferated throughout the country, raising the distinct possibility that they would launch attacks right there on American soil. The 9/11 terrorist attacks, which subsequently occurred, served as a tragic confirmation of this assessment. The book was titled Wake Up, Americans. Its cover featured an image of the Statue of Liberty shedding 2 streams of blood-red tears. See photo. Let us compare the 2 global blocks, the free world and the communist world, to 2 spheres. The red sphere symbolizes communism, the blue sphere symbolizes the free world. The blue sphere is composed of a multitude of precious diamonds, pieces of pure gold, and various gems and gemstones. Yet, it also contains a great deal of common earth, paper, and rags. All these elements are held together by a type of adhesive made from rice paste. Viewed from the outside, the blue sphere appears magnificent. The red sphere, by contrast, consists merely of a solid mass of pure lead, painted red on the exterior. When these two spheres are hurled against one another, the blue sphere shatters instantly, scattering its constituent materials, both the precious and the cheap, along with a weak adhesive that bound them. The red sphere, however, being a solid mass of hard lead, suffers nothing more than a scratch to its paintwork. This analogy illustrates that the free world lacks unity. Its members constantly undermine one another in a ceaseless struggle to secure advantages for their own specific parties and factions. I also observed that the United States is, in many respects, a heaven on earth. Furthermore, it is a militarily secure land, naturally fortified by the vast oceans that surround it. I posited that Americans are the spiritual descendants, the reincarnation, as it were, of the ancient Jewish people. They are intelligent and beautiful. Yet, the fundamental nature of Americans mirrors that of the ancient Jews. When confronted with hardship or peril, they pray and plead fervently to God. However, once God delivers them from danger and grants them lives of prosperity and comfort, they revert to lives of decadence and debauchery, turning their backs against Him. The events surrounding 9/11 serve as proof of this pattern. When the attacks struck, Americans prayed to God, rallying under the slogan, "God bless America." Yet, in the aftermath of 9/11, they turned away and rebelled against God, symbolized by the removal of a stone tablet inscribed with the 10 Commandments from a courthouse, which was then cast out onto the street. God warned humanity in 2019. The outbreak of the coronavirus, which plunged all of humanity into crisis, served as a warning regarding the end times. At that time, people across the globe were dying en masse, and there were no emergency treatments available. The incredibly virulent coronavirus killed people in the blink of an eye. Victims died as if merely falling asleep. Entire families perished within a matter of days. No one dared to approach anyone else. Workers delivering food to the public would simply leave the provisions on doorsteps before hurriedly retreating. The people of China confined themselves within their homes. They threw money out onto the streets through their windows, declaring that this was a day of divine retribution. No one dared to pick up the money for fear that the currency was contaminated with a deadly virus. God issued this warning to humanity for the duration of 1 month. Then, just as suddenly, the coronavirus vanished. In reality, at that time, no cure yet existed. No pharmaceutical corporation or renowned disease control institute in the world had yet discovered a method to eradicate this incredibly toxic pathogen. Why did God choose Mr. Trump to be the 47th president? The United States today has fallen into a state of profound moral decay. Religion has been banished from schools. Adolescents are granted the freedom to change their gender identities at will. They are encouraged to engage in sexual activity, bear children out of wedlock, and undergo abortions. Parents have been stripped of their authority to discipline and raise their own children. In the eyes of God, the world is a single family. Yet, His children have become depraved and corrupt. They have lost their faith in God, and, much like the inhabitants of Sodom in the Old Testament era, they refuse to heed His warnings. Mr. Trump serves as the eldest brother of this family, a figure who is filial, respectful, loving, and devoted to caring for his parents. As such, he possesses the moral authority to guide and discipline his younger siblings. For if the eldest brother fails to guide his younger siblings, or worse, if he himself acts with filial impiety, treats his parents with cruelty, and lives a life of lewdness and debauchery, then the entire family is truly lost. At that moment, the father will mete out punishment, delivering chastisement to everyone from the eldest brother down to the youngest siblings. That will be the day of judgment, the day America is destroyed. The American people must acknowledge that God has chosen Mr. Trump to act on his behalf to bring stability to the world. God has already saved him from 4 assassination attempts. Today, the United States must utilize the strength bestowed upon it by God to reclaim its mandate to uphold justice and to stand against tyranny and wickedness. President Trump will not be bound by the propagandistic and deceitful resolutions of the United Nations. Instead, he will employ military force to strike and punish any nation that oppresses its people or compels them to adhere to atheistic and immoral ideologies. President Trump has taken action in a manner no previous American president dared to attempt: the overthrow of the Venezuelan regime. The U.S. military apprehended both the Venezuelan president and his wife, bringing them back to the United States all without the loss of a single American soldier. The current joint operation by the United States and Israel against Iran is undertaken to avert a catastrophe for humanity, a catastrophe that would otherwise inflict far greater losses upon America in the future. The American people should liken this situation to cancer. The state of the world today resembles a human body afflicted with a malignant tumor. Americans must be willing to accept minor sacrifices now in exchange for securing justice and peace for the entire world. Should they fail to do so, hostile forces will inevitably destroy the United States. Regarding the realms of the occult and spirituality, I suddenly have come across information on the internet concerning a blind seer named Baba Vanga, 1911-1996. Baba Vanga accurately predicted numerous global events. Specifically regarding the United States, she spoke of a president whose name sounded like a drum. In English, the name Trump bears a phonetic resemblance to the word drum. She predicted that this president would be assassinated, however, she did not specify whether he would survive the attack. From the time she made this prediction concerning President Trump until her passing in 1996, Baba Vanga offered no further prophecies. Does this imply that the end of humanity will occur either during or immediately following President Trump's term in office? In conclusion, God has empowered Mr. Trump to employ force to stabilize the global order. Should Mr. Trump pass away, or should he fail in his mission to stabilize the world, that will mark the moment when violence and godlessness seize leadership of the globe. That will be the day of judgment. God will be compelled to intervene and punish humanity just as he consumed the people of Sodom with fire due to their depravity. Drawing upon my experience in researching occult sciences from 1975 to the present, particularly during President Donald Trump's term, beginning in 2016 and substantiated by precise evidence found in numerous videos, I, Sun Lin, hereby affirm the following. First, the Roman Catholic Church has strayed from the true path. It is possible that the Holy Spirit will intervene to set it right. Second, in 2016, God chose Mr. Trump to serve as President of the United States in order to stabilize the global order and to eradicate crime and wickedness. He will restore America to a state of power and justice. Please wait and see. Respectfully, Sun Lin May 1, 2026.